one of the things that makes our story unique is that meeting so young, we had to figure out how to grow up together, how to wake up together, and how to maintain a relationship throughout that whole time. So when we fell in love, our frame going into this relationship is like, we don't want to be in a relationship. And we've never seen a relationship that we actually want to have. And so because of that, if we're going to do this relationship thing, we're going to throw out the entire rule book of everything that we've seen. And we're going to start and we're going to experiment and we're going to figure out what works for us. And that led us to running a bunch of experiments in very edgy territories in the domains of sex and money and power and living and all of these things to try and figure out what's real and what actually works.
Welcome to the Stay Grounded podcast. I'm your host, Raj Jana, co-founder at Liberate, and it's my mission to help you become the most grounded, loving, and authentic version of yourself that you can be. Each week, I interview guests in the fields of mindset, spirituality, and emotional well-being. My brilliant guests share their tools, tips, and unique perspectives to help you develop the skills you need to show up for the people that matter most in your life. Now let's dive in. Yo, what's up everyone, and welcome to this incredibly special episode of Stay Grounded with two of the dearest human beings in my life, Libby and Andy Drish. So if Andy's name is familiar, it's because he was on the podcast years ago. Andy is one of the most important human beings to enter my life. He is the reason I became an entrepreneur. He had a course that I bought years ago that started my entrepreneurial journey. And then after I got out of my 9-year relationship, he was the man I called. Because Andy and Libby are both an example of sacred union that I have never seen anywhere else. Like they have a unique, and I have several mentors now in love where like there's different union templates, but Andy and Libby's is so unique in that one, they met when they were super young and they learned to grow through love. And as a result of them actually testing different frameworks on their own relationship, they have created a dynamic and a container that is incredibly inspiring. And it's always inspired me. And in this episode, we break down what those frameworks are. We break down the different stages of relationship and how to know where you are in the cycle of relating so that the next time you are in conflict or something isn't working, it doesn't necessarily have to mean that it's the end of the relationship. It can mean something so much more. You know, Andy and Libby really both embody this deep sense of mastery in this space because of how much I've seen them do their own work and the mentors they work with. And to me, to have this opportunity, one, to sit with them and to learn what it takes to have a relationship that thrives over time, what it takes to have a relationship that gets more nourishing and more fulfilling, and how to actually lean into relationship to grow into your highest potential. I mean, those are all concepts that we talk about on this podcast, and I hope you guys soak up every moment of it because truly, Andy and Libby are two human beings that I trust so deeply with relationship advice and for the type of relationship that I'm calling in and choosing to create in my life. And I hope it inspires you to take nuggets, whether it's all of it or you take nuggets from what they do. I hope it inspires you to go deeper in your own union, in your own relationships. And I hope it inspires you to love bigger. So in any case, I hope this intro inspired you enough to now want to listen to the most amazing Libby and Andy Drish. Enjoy. Andy and Libby. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited for this.
Me too.
I'm like, I loved our conversation, but this together is just so stunning. I mean, both of you truly did start one of the most important journeys of my life several years ago. And I have been waiting for a moment to have both of you here to, one, just say how grateful I am personally for how much both of you have changed the trajectory of my life and how you both have modeled such an important example of what love can be. And I remember just being so lost after my relationship ended and where I was in so much chaos and confused. And even just like right before we began recording, like you bringing awareness to these maps, I knew none of them. And so I'd love to maybe just set the frame of like, one, we started talking about devotion and freedom, and those being sort of like two poles, or devotion or freedom and safety in some ways. What is that? If you could set the frame for like the dance between the two poles, like why is that the dance? Like why are those two the endpoints that we're going back and forth between? Why not? There's so many different aspects of self and life and expression, but it seems to be like those 2 points are where relationships go in and out, at least from the conversations we've had. And I'm curious if you guys can set a frame for that as we start the dialogue.
Yeah. Well, we're stoked to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What we're talking about is a certain type of relationship. And when you're building a relationship where devotion is the North Star ahead of everything else, it has a different feel to it. And we hold devotion in a very high regard. Libby will often say something along the lines of, if devotion were a gem, it would be the rarest gem in the world, because the price of devotion is everything. Like, it's all of you. And what happens in the game of relationship is that there is a constant tension between two values that people hold. And the general conflict in relationship is a conflict between safety and freedom. And this gets expressed in all the different domains, from money to sex to health, whatever it is, introversion and extroversion. There's always this polarity that's going on. And those can be really hard to navigate. And what devotion is devotion is the through line. Devotion is the line that ends up satisfying both of those for each of you in every conflict. And so it's really helpful to have a map of, if you're stuck on a conflict and you're fighting about something and it doesn't seem like there's any sort of through line that you can get through, these maps can help you navigate of like, well, we don't know exactly what the next thing is, but we can figure out what the next step is to get us back into a state of harmony and flow. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful.
I think part of why, well, the reason why we're here today, 15 years in, we met young, and we were many a times in the early years, our relationship was hanging on by a thread.
It was very chaotic and very, very volatile for many years.
And thank God that thread was the thread of devotion, because that was the only thing strong enough that nothing was working. I had so many questions and fears and concerns, but I didn't give up. I stayed. It's like playing a video game. You keep dying at the same place, or you keep dying, but if you keep playing, you eventually figure it out. And then what's at the end of the game? A whole tunnel to a whole new reality, that when you experience that reward of not giving up when things are hard, you are transplanted into a reality that you wouldn't have believed was possible. If you would have told me we would be where we are 15 years later, I wouldn't have believed you. But we were blessed to be, for some reason, devoted to each other.
What is the feeling of devotion? Like, how does it feel when you're inside of a moment where you can't see anything through, I feel like I can understand what devotion is when things are great.
Yeah.
But what does devotion feel like, look like, when you literally cannot see any light? You can't see the other person. You can't see yourself. There's so much ambiguity and chaos, and you have so much projection from the outside world of people being like, this is how you should run your relationship, or this is what you should do. Like, what does devotion look like, feel like, when you are inside of that state?
That's a really good question. I believe it's the gateway for me is when I stop resisting that I don't know. And I don't think he knows. And we don't know. And then the friends that I believe everyone gives relationship advice based on their current and past experience. So we have dear friends we're still close with today that when we went through a couple of our hard periods years ago, they said, I think it's over.
These are people who know us well, you know.
They
They're
love
close to
us, they're close to us, but based on their experience, like, and what they'd experienced so far, you know, the ones that said it's over were single. And the ones that we also consulted and that were deep into marriage said something very different. And so for me, entering into a devotional frequency is where I stop resisting what is, even when it's really painful and even when it's really uncomfortable. And if I stop resisting, it allows me to get as present as I possibly can be. And the constraints become creative gateways. And if I just choose love, like, no, we're figuring this out some way, somehow, and I stay through that process. Everything you try, you learn something new, even what doesn't work. Who to not take advice from. Because that's the thing I love most about relationships is it's like a blank canvas that you get to create your unique masterpiece, your dream life together, which the best people to create that is the two of you.
In the darkest times, devotion feels like death. That's how it feels. Mm-hmm. Because you're stuck and like there's no through line and there's nowhere to go. And if you can find the part of you that both of you can be okay with that stuckness, and it's like you find that depth of connection of like, this sucks. Mm-hmm. And we're in this thing and we don't know where to go and this isn't working. And you can find a thread of connection in that space, mm-hmm. in the not knowing, in the fear, in the doubt, then like new things start to emerge. Mm-hmm. So in the darkest times, devotion feels like death and surrender. And in the lightest of times, devotion is the most exquisite thing on the planet. It's like every desire you have is possible. Like your carnal lust, your hunger for men anyway, like lust, power, like all of that is actually celebrated. Her desire becomes sacred to me. It's like I want to give her the things that matter most to her because I just want her to have her desires. Like it becomes this archetypical muse creator dynamic in the lightest of times. But the pathway to getting to that was a very wild ride for us and a very, very challenging one.
And can you speak to maybe like a Cliff Note version of that journey? Just like paint the story of your love. Because I'm like, I remember when I heard even the concept of death portals. Like when you guys mentioned that to me, like I was like, this is like most people would just see those portals as we are done.
Totally.
Right?
That's
and
how
like,
it feels.
And that's how it feels.
And there's truth in that, where the relationship, as you know, it is over. It is done. It has died. And are we going to be in that space in between the in-breath and out-breath and allow what wants to die, trusting you don't know what's on the other side. And there's a big vulnerability. And I remember many times thinking, am I crazy? Like, am I crazy? Like, is this what I really should be spending my 20s doing while all my friends were boss bitching it up? Like, and now I'm like, that was the best decision I ever made. Like, it was the best decision I ever made. And I think I was 23 and 25. You were 25 when we met. And the reason why we got introduced to each other is because we were both very anti-relationship, because I'd experienced relationships to be like fun to a point, but more confining. And so I just wanted to focus on my career and having fun. And I didn't want to get married till 30. And then when we took all the pressure off, because he was about to move, it didn't make sense. Like He seemed kind of emotionally unavailable.
I was very emotionally unavailable. I mean, I was 25 and I was very unintelligent and emotionally unaware. It's like what makes our one of the things that makes our story unique is that meeting so young, we had to figure out how to grow up together, how to wake up together, and how to maintain a relationship throughout that whole time. So when we fell in love, our frame going into this relationship is like, we don't want to be in a relationship. And we've never seen a relationship that we actually want to have. And so because of that, if we're going to do this relationship thing, we're going to throw out the entire rule book of everything that we've seen. And we're going to start and we're going to experiment and we're going to figure out what works for us. And that led us to running a bunch of experiments in very edgy territories in the domains of sex and money and power and living and all of these things to try and figure out what's real and what actually works. And that was bold and audacious and challenging to go through at times.
And thank you.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I feel like we're relationship astronauts in a sense where we like went to other realities in these different experiments, and in order to come back, and one of the like these maps we've mentioned, when we looked back at the first 8 years of our relationship, it was like what we wished we would have had was a map. Because we were blessed with one couple mentors that they were the living embodiment of something we were, like they had a field around them. Even though initially when I first met them, I was really triggered. And then we had another mentor who was able to describe what they were doing. And he really played a sacred role for us because I feel like creating an extraordinary relationship is kind of like climbing Mount Everest. And there's certain passages that you really want your spiritual Sherpa to
help
guide you through, because one false step could be the end, truly. Like there are times in relationship where every move matters.
And I'll just riff on this and let you
Yeah,
next. But
That's perfect.
So if you want to be in a relationship forever, for an entire lifetime, it will not be the same relationship because you evolve as humans and you change as humans. And so you have to have space, which is something we don't necessarily have in this culture, is you have to have space for the relationship to die and to let go. And we call these relationship death cycles, where a relationship gets to the point where it's like nothing's working, you don't see a future, you don't see a way that you can move through whatever conflict it is that you're up against. And so there has to be a space where you learn how to navigate that period of time together, where you truly let the relationship go, let the old dynamics die, so that you can create a blank slate for the next expression of it. And so we've been together almost 15 years now. We've had multiple iterations of our relationship during those phases. And that's one of the things I think we've gotten uniquely good at, is allowing ourselves to go fully into those phases and to let go and to allow the relationship to continue to evolve in the way that it wants to evolve.
Oh my gosh. So I have like a billion questions right now. I'm trying to, it's just, there's so many around. In hindsight, what was the most useful map? Right. So because it sounds like there's many maps. So like, what was the most useful and the ones that you keep coming back to? That's one question. And then I have others around. What does it look like to get better at the dying process? Because I feel like that is in some ways a meta skill that if we all learned inside of our relationship containers, we would be able to navigate a lot more of the crunch.
Yeah.
And be able to do it more gracefully and have enough compassion for the other person and for yourself as you're navigating it. And so those are my two kind of questions, and I'll let you guys decide how you want to answer them.
I think early on, we read one of David Data's books that describes like the 3 stages of relationship: codependence, independence, interdependence. And
it didn't really make sense.
It didn't really make sense then. But then the one and only time we actually did break up in our relationship was now I can see it was when, and often I was the one who led us from codependency to independence, where I one day woke up and had the word sovereignty tattooed on my forehead, not literally, but figuratively. And I realized that I had been abandoning myself out of fear of losing him or his support. And I just got to a point where I'm like, this is wreaking havoc on my health. This just doesn't feel right. I don't feel valued for the feminine energy that I'm bringing into our life. And I do believe at that point where we were at, like, I have no regrets around actually leaving, because I think one of the fears that men can have, especially entrepreneurs and people that have experienced success in business, is that there's this deep-seated fear around a woman just wanting you for your resources. And at that point, I left when I had like $5,000 in my bank account, and he had 7+, like way more. And that was the moment that you've told me that was when you were like just blown away of like, who is this creature who probably before you did see me on some level as like weak or codependent or whatever, which wasn't how I had experienced myself before the relationship. So I was like, wow, I really lost myself in this relationship.
Yeah, she was willing to burn everything down for the pursuit of love and truth. And I respect that.
Totally, man.
I respect that. And it's a very profound thing to have your heart broken so deeply. And to at the same time like feel that respect and reverence and awe. And it popped me through to a whole different reality with this. So if we zoom back to the map that Libby's speaking of, if relationships evolve in three stages, just like, you know, if you're an entrepreneur, you know that businesses evolve in stages. And the stages are pretty similar depending on the business that you start, but you got to figure out the product and get product market fit. You have to scale sales, then you have to build operations, and, you know, you figure that out as you go. Relationships follow a very similar dynamic. You have the codependent phase, where it's generally lots of honeymoon phase and then a lot of conflict and volatility. Then you start doing the inner work and get a therapist, do all the things. You move into stage 2, which is...
And if it's not I think there's 2 different types of couple, just for simplicity's sake, of ones that tend towards more fighting and volatility, and then ones that sweep things under the rug, and then they feel like, oh, do I love you anymore? Do I know you? Like, it becomes stale.
So that's all stage 1 dynamics. And then as you move into stage 2, it's all around equality. So it's like, you're a sovereign person, I'm a sovereign person. We're going to come together. We're going to create this third thing called the relationship. We're going to set values and a vision, and like, this is how we're going to define things. And when we make decisions, we make them mutually. And that's where you learn like nonviolent communication. Therapy is really good during this phase. Like, you learn how to negotiate and collaborate.
You learned how to value my feminine energy, and I learned where I was not valuing or being more in my entitled princess energy around masculine energy.
Totally. And so this is a stage 2 dynamics. The challenge with stage 2 is that if you run stage 2 for a long time, it becomes exhausting. It becomes exhausting to negotiate the stuff and do all the authentic relating back and forth. And it's like you spend all this time processing.
Oh my God.
Like, oh my God.
That's a really good data point if you're in
just
stage 2 is, wow,
Yeah.
are we really going to process this again? Like, I'm just so exhausted from all the processing. Is it really this hard?
And it's very frustrating for a man. Like, I mean, I'm sure it's frustrating for a woman as well, but like the time and energy that goes into that is draining. And it's like you have things to do and stuff to build, and it's like, it's challenging. So the man leads into stage 3, and stage 3 is really the frequency of devotion. And you go from this egalitarian, we are equals and we're going to collaborate together, to the poles flipped, and there becomes hierarchy, and there becomes more polarity and more charge. And so the one of the beautiful things of stage 1, you have this like sexual connection and polarity. It also creates the high highs and low lows. Stage 2, you kind of lose that, and then you become more stable, but you kind of lose that charge that you once had.
You kind of feel like roommates sometimes.
Yeah. And in stage 3, it comes back online to where you have the sexual charge and polarity, but it's stabilized and it's grounded. So you're not having this volatile, chaotic experience. And so that's kind of the rough map of how we've seen this game evolve.
So I see, I just want to ask a clarifying question. You painted a pretty good picture of stage 1 and stage 2, but stage 3, could you add a little more color and context so I can understand?
For sure.
At some point, stage 2 started to feel exhausting, and like we were having to negotiate in order to create harmony, which took a lot of hours of conversation and boundaries and communication. And so at some point you start to have this feeling of like, wow, this feels really inefficient. And I also miss that electric charge. And then you led us into stage 3.
Yes.
Where he started saying things like, I think you should just trust me and follow my lead.
Stop negotiating, stop fighting with me on this. Like, I actually know what's best for you. And I've cultivated a level of empathy and attunement to her, to knowing what she needs, almost better than she does at times.
Got it.
And so because I have that attunement, instead of the negotiating back and forth, I can say, just do this. And she can trust that. And she can trust that that's actually going to be the right thing for her. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So there's a depth of trust that you've actually accessed within him. And could you speak a little bit to, because going from like processing all the time to getting to that point takes a decision on both ends.
Oh,
so it's a
it's
decision
very
from
active.
you to lead.
Totally.
And maybe a decision from you to be attuned and do your inner work to really feel her.
Yeah.
And then from you, it feels like there's a decision to trust and surrender. So can you speak to that from your own polls of going from that stage 2 to stage 3 and what that looks like?
I think it might have been harder for me. I think
think it
after
was.
I got really I liked the power that I had reclaimed in stage 2 compared to stage 1. And what happened is at that point, you were definitely, I would ask you for advice, and I didn't follow it all the time. And so I learned the hard way over probably 1 or 2 years of getting his advice, not following it, only to realize in the end, oh, wow, he was right all along. And now I've kind of created this mess that now I want his help cleaning it up. That was fun for you, I'm sure.
That was great.
And and I hit a point, and I think being on like the preconception path was helpful because I was personally shifting, like, wow, I'm about to go into a big nature's initiation into the feminine, becoming a mother. And so that helped. And then I remembered what it felt like the first time I surrendered. Like it took a deep surrender for me to leave our relationship 2 years in because it felt terrifying. It felt like almost like spiritual, also egoic suicide. Like I was correct in feeling like, well, we've created everything together. You know, I think some men create their kingdom and then invite a woman in, but because we met so young, we've really co-created together. And I think it was the sacrifices I made early on to step away from my career that in my head, I was like, well, you have the successful business, but you also have our relationship because I prioritize that over my own career, even though that really was uncomfortable for me.
So in stage 1, she left. It created a whole emotional heartbreak for me in that phase. In stage 2, I'm leading her into a deeper state of surrender and relaxation, which is very, very challenging. It is a very difficult thing in our culture today for a woman to let go and to value her surrender and to follow and to trust. And it just got to a point for me where I was tired of the back and forth, and it's like, I want her to be soft and radiant and feminine. And when we're negotiating like this, it's not soft and radiant, you know? And so, yeah, it just hit a point where it's like, I want a different dynamic. And it's, if you want this in a relationship with a man, it's yours to lead. Like, you have to lead it and you have to be attuned. And then the leadership that you bring has to be, her life has to expand because of it. And if you're off, it will create contraction and it will make it harder for her to let go and follow and to trust you. Is this answering your questions?
It's great. And do you want to add something to that?
Well, there's so many things that helped me, because this was honestly really confusing to me. Like, I didn't get it. He was like, just follow my lead. And I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, okay. But then we were lucky to watch several friends become parents before we did. And the one commonality that I heard in the challenges after becoming parents was the mothers really wanted the men to do more, to take on more. And right there, he was saying, like, I want to take on more. And so I was like, one of our philosophy, like one of our strategies in life is to front load the work, front load the pain. And so during pregnancy, we consciously were like, okay, you're going to take on more. You're going to lead this. And it wasn't, perfect. And it never is. But the more I actually just let go and trusted him and didn't shame him or make him wrong around the mistakes he made. Like, one thing was, I had always managed all of our health insurance up until that point. And he said, I want to take that on. That's something I can take on. And so he took it on. And then we had a lot of miscommunications and a lot of challenges. Like, I think I had to change doctors like 3 times during pregnancy because of what that was, which now I also don't think that was a wrong note, because I learned so much about the different lenses in medicine related to pregnancy. And so it did end up serving me in the end. But
it was my miss on it, And when you move into this phase, there's a burden of leadership. Like, to lead means to take on more responsibility, which requires competence. Like, competence is what leads. And so if you're taking on a new realm that you're not as competent in, there's a learning curve to it. And the learning curve, you pay your tuition and dues through pain and through making mistakes. And if I'm going to take that on, she's going to field that burden and that pain as well as me. But it's going to be more painful for her because she knows how to do it. And so she's letting go of a thing that she's in a zone of like excellence with. She's good at it, but it's not her sweet spot. Like, she doesn't want to be doing health insurance stuff. That's not like her calling and things like that.
It's not my highest joy.
So there's a process of like, you have to learn how to build the competency.
I was going to say, like, what shifted within you to want to take on
More?
Yeah. And was that a period where you're at just talk to me about that. Cause I think that's actually, if we can actually break that down.
Yeah.
I
mean, you just get tired of processing. It's frustrating, like the back and forth, especially when you get to a point where you're like, you're processing something and you know what the answer is. You know where this whole process is going to go. You know where you're going to end up with the decision on it. But then you have to spend a couple hours like talking it back and forth. And it's way more efficient if it's like, just trust me, I know what needs to happen here, and just do the thing. It's way more efficient. And so for me, I just got kind of fed up with that process is one of them. And then the other thing is like, my favorite thing in the world is having her be in a soft, radiant, happy place. And when she's having to do stuff in the 3D world, it erodes the radiance and the softness. Like, if she has to be out building a business sucks. Like, it's a lot of work. You're constantly fighting battles. There's constantly stuff that's breaking. It's like, it's constant challenge. And so if she's in that kind of energy, at the end of the day, she's generally tired and exhausted and she needs to recharge more than I do. I do too, But I would rather create a reality where I'm taking that burden on and she can be in that softer place. And then we can meet at the end of the day in that. And that's a much more alluring relational dynamic to me than being individual partners and
So
negotiating.
it sounds like
50-50.
you're like, okay, how do I create that relational dynamic that I want? And how do I have to be showing up inside of the relationship to create it? And so you really just took on full creator consciousness at that point. That was the rite of passage in some ways of being like, all right, I'm done leaving it up to chance. I'm done leaving it up to her. I'm going to lead. And in some ways, I'm going to suck at leading maybe in certain dimensions. And I'm going to be okay with that because that's also a part of my development.
Yeah.
But you saw it as this iterative cycle of learning and growing and becoming.
Yeah.
And that's what then drove you to keep doing it.
Yeah.
It changed the energy from burden to it being almost like a part of your evolution. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, I think like as a man, you get to a point where your nature is like you want to give more and more, and like as a man, like protecting and providing, that's always something that that I valued from the beginning with us, and it was just taking it to a new level. And yeah, there's immense benefits. Like there's absolutely a burden to it. Like that's true. But there's also a level of gifts that are so sweet and that I wouldn't trade for anything, you know? Like I want to take that burden on. I want to take on those hard things so that she can have a better experience of her day-to-day living.
Yeah.
And it feeds me. Like her feminine softness feeds me to go do more, you know? Is this making sense?
Yeah, no, it's I'm catching what you're pitching. It's great. And what's so beautiful is like, I feel like we're coming back into this game of devotion, right? Like even like levels to devotion. It feels like there's level 1 devotion, and then there's like an evolution to devotion. And what does it feel like from you, Libby, to be in devotion going from stage 2 to stage 3?
Great question.
It's a really
Can't
good
wait to hear
question.
the answer.
Well, he for months was saying like, I really just want you to trust me and follow my lead. And in my head, I'm like, okay. I just got to a point where I was like, okay, I do believe him. And I am willing to take the risk and let go of the reins that I was holding in order for him to actually be able to grab them and learn from them and like get better. And there was definitely some fumbles, and I didn't shame you or blame you or make you wrong. And so that was a key part that I think accelerated the process, because in the initial shift, I really believe like being somewhat dogmatic of like, okay, leader, follower. And then I really started to get like driver, navigator. Like follower is a very active role.
Can you speak to that?
The less that I was driving and doing, it allowed my intuition, my desires, my visions to open up even more. And so I was just filled with all of this and learned how to communicate in a way that actually landed for him. I can't tell you how many years I spent criticizing, complaining to him. And the reality is it just didn't give me what I want. He would close down, back away, disconnect. Like it was not getting me what I wanted. And so I wanted to try something different. And I really initially like took that on of like, okay. And I think also being in the pregnancy portal was very helpful, because all of a sudden my life changed and I was consumed with a whole new transition and transformation and thing that I was more connected to before. You know, I think men, it happens once the baby's born. For women, it happens far before. And so that was also a natural motivation where I was like, yeah, I want to stop leading as much as I am in order for me to go deep into this new reality that I was experiencing so that I can lead that part.
So in stage 3, the whole framework of communication changes. And I'll give some like really silly, simple examples at first, but like, you know, there's ways to get to communicate what your needs and desires are. And so if Libby were to say, hey babe,
I remember the day this happened actually,
I'm gonna
where
do
I clicked. Okay.
Yeah, I'll give this one, and then you can tell that one. If she's like, hey babe, will you open this pickle jar for me? You know, silly example. And my natural ability would be like, sure, you know. But it's a very different experience when I see her with a pickle jar struggling and she's trying to open and she's like, ugh, and I see her like having an emotionally painful experience. When that happens, my natural inclination is to get up and like take the pickle jar from her and fix it. And so what happens in stage 3, how the communication changes, is that it goes from a verbal thing to an emotional thing. So the more that she expresses her emotional desire, vulnerability, tenderness, that is the faster way for her to getting her what she wants versus her trying to negotiate and trying to get me to do the thing.
Oh, wow. Let me just make sure I understand this. So the more vulnerability Libby shows,
Yes.
the more
inspiration that creates. And it's my natural reaction is to move into action to tend to the vulnerability because I like her softness and I like her vulnerability and I want to maintain that. And so and I have to give her a ton of credit here because I think it is extremely difficult for a woman to do this as a baseline experience. And if you layer our cultural programming and how much, you know, historical trauma of like, you know, following toxic masculinity is in our field and stuff, it makes it even just that much more intense. So it's really a bold act of courage to be able to leap into this. And it's
I remember the day I got it because I don't even remember. It may have actually been the pickle jar, and that's why we have that example. It was some household thing that I was struggling with.
I think it was the Christmas lights.
That was one too. I watched him literally leap off the couch to help me. And I was like, whoa. What just happened? Because I've asked this so many different times, and that is not the response I got in the past. So what's happening that was his natural response, was to leap to help me? And so I like reverse, like, because to me, I was so confused because I'm like, I'm saying the same thing. Hey babe, can you open the pickle jar? Or like, rather, I think I was just sitting there like just struggling with it. And that's when I got it of like, oh wow, I thought I was saying the same thing, but I'm getting two different responses from him.
It registers totally different.
Totally.
No, it's a complete, you know what I'm saying?
I know exactly. It's so beautiful because I know exactly what you mean. Like when I feel the tenderness,
yeah.
There's a part of me that comes online that wants to do nothing but just hold.
Totally.
It's like a primal instinct almost that's moving through your body, and it's just like it's its own energy source in some ways.
So in stage 3, it looks like
an infinite energy.
It's an infinite energy. It's why it's like it's yeah. Go ahead.
In stage 3, so it looks like I'm leading. Like I have like the title of leader. Like that's kind of how we orient to it. But it's actually her desire that's leading. It's actually her softness, her desire, her vulnerability. That's what's the through line is. That's what's the navigation is. And so, we had moved into Minnesota, and this is another silly example, but also so profound for us at the time. We'd moved into this house. We had just gotten there. It was Christmas. She loves Christmas. She loves decorating our house with all the things and the Christmas trees and the decorations, and she loves Christmas lights. But we were there for like 3 weeks, had just moved. It was a total cluster. And we had 3 or 4 conversations where she's like, babe, can we get some Christmas lights? You know, directing, asking, trying to get me to, no, babe, it's like, we just don't have the time this year. We're not going to do it. And that conversation happened multiple
Well,
times.
so he said that and I was like, great, I respect your time. And so then I went over here and I did a bunch of research and called the Christmas light companies, got quotes and did all this legwork and then brought it back to him again. And he's like, yeah, no, we're not going to spend like $6,000 to have someone
install permanent Christmas lights. I was like, no way, absolutely not. So then we're driving home from the gym one day and we pull into our driveway.
I let it go at that point.
Yeah, she had completely let it go. And we drive into the driveway and we pull into the driveway and out of nowhere, she just goes, babe, isn't this house just begging to be decorated in Christmas lights?
Because I saw the vision and I was just putting words to it. In the moment, it was so genuine. It was such a yearning.
No attachment to the thing. No, like it was a pure expression of desire. And in that moment, I was like, fuck. So, it's like, I don't want to do it, but like, it just registers. So I end up like finding a dude. Man. Now what's even crazier, he ended up becoming our handyman. He came, did the Christmas lights. We got him up in like a week. And
for
then
a fraction of the cost.
She got the thing she wanted. I got a handyman. It all worked out great. So it's like
it worked out even better. So that was like a moment of like, whoa, this collaboration is better.
And this is how it becomes way more efficient. It's way faster.
And you get the best solution where it's like, yeah, we're spending less money. We're getting like customized service. And then he became our handyman. And so it was the best solution.
But it's very difficult to stay in the softness and to not be attached to having the thing when you really want the thing.
That maybe is the art.
Totally.
And I'd love to maybe expand on that because I think that there's a real edge to being that vulnerable and unattached, which I think comes back to the other question I asked you guys. How do you die well in some ways? Like they feel similar in some ways where it's like this vulnerability of like, okay, like I have no idea where this is going. But like there's that, but then the lack of attachment is what actually sets it free. And in this way, it's also the same thing. Like there's a vulnerability with your yearning being expressed and being like, because there's a chance it could be rejected or shamed or judged or pushed away or dismissed. And then for it to be there just for the pure expression of it, like feels almost like a personal choice. So how do you both make those choices?
I wasn't getting what I wanted. Like I thought I was communicating, all the things I had learned stage 2, authentic communication. We went deep down those rabbit holes. I thought I was being a good communicator, but it wasn't getting me the result I wanted. Like I just trying to like tell him what to do or complain or criticize, like I definitely got the perfect partner for me to become liberated from, what was modeled to me many generations back. And I am growth oriented enough, and all of the experiments and having an experimental attitude has really helped me because you can do anything for a week.
I'm curious because I actually want to know your answer to this even deeper, but you tend to stay very much in your feminine at this point in our life. And like, when did you begin prioritizing that ahead of so many of the other things?
I mean, it's been a continuous journey. And now I feel like I'm reintegrating healthy masculine energy back in to myself. But it just felt good. Like, even though it just felt better to me. And the more I tuned into my intuition, the stronger it got. And I got to see, just like I got to watch it play out, like when I would follow him versus when I wouldn't. And then in the end, realizing he's right. It's kind of the same thing with intuition for me, where I'm like, the more I follow it, the better it gets, the more accurate. And it allows me to feel so free to be living in this present moment, emergent reality, which is my favorite place to be. And also it gave me more access to my deepest heart's desires. Like when in the beginning of a relationship, I was like, I don't have any fantasies. I don't know what I want. And our experiments helped me get in touch with that. And then I realized, wow, like I'm really happy when I'm living like 90% in emergent reality and then 10% like holding this really steady, huge vision for our life that we're creating.
Yeah, in this dynamic, like I trust her intuition often more than I trust my logic with things. Like in terms of navigating and making big decisions, I had the exact same experience, just reversed. Is like her intuition with people and deals and like all of these things was so spot on over and over. She would say these crazy things, and I would, we moved to this place in Minnesota. Long story short, the sellers lied on the disclosures. We ended up having to get in a lawsuit. It took 2 years to like get it resolved, remodel the house, do all these things. So it was a 2-year journey. We leave for 2 months for the house to get remodeled. We come back, and literally in the first week of getting back, Libby comes to me and she's like, babe, I don't think I can be in Minnesota anymore. I think we have to move. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like we just did all of this, and straight up 6 months later, we moved to Austin. And so this has happened over and over to where her intuition has been 6 months ahead of reality. So I've just learned to very much trust that. Going back to the death piece of, like how she stays in her feminine flow, how the man stays in like the leadership polar, like a deeper relationship. With death is I think you have to cultivate an intimate relationship with death. I think it is necessity to be able to move through those cycles really well. And so I will often think about that when we are together. And so, there is a fact of reality that you will lose whoever you're with. And you don't know when, and you don't know how. Like she might cheat on you. She might get cancer. She might get hit by a car tomorrow. But the end state is that the relationship ends. And that's a fact of reality. That's like where we're all going. And it is that remembering of that on a consistent basis that allows a level of magic and beauty to emerge. And just this depth of not taking her for granted or moments for granted. And I think cultivating that healthy relationship with the end state of all things is really important during those phases.
It's the only certainty in life is death.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I could see how cultivating that deep relationship to the truth, right? These death points, and using that as an opportunity to deepen your intimacy with life or your partner allows you to soften and stay vulnerable more often than not. Like knowing that you're going to die is one of the most humble things we can admit to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like there's a depth of humility that's actually attached to that construct.
Yeah, and it's the ultimate equalizer. It constantly puts into focus what actually matters. And so when you get lost in all the static and fluff, it's like that is the deeper cut that just pops you through that chaos into what's more real.
This is flowing through. What is the purpose of relationship? Because I'm like,
Great question.
I'm tuning in here, and there's like, clearly there's a deeper spiritual undertone to the relationship construct, at least the one that you guys are modeling. Like, what is the purpose for relating?
Mm-hmm. I mean, when marriage was first became a concept, I think it was more of something to unite tribes. And then, women, and not that long ago, couldn't own land or have a credit card unless they were married. And now we've evolved to the point where I feel like the purpose of relationship is love. And people talk a lot about unconditional love. And in our journey, we've really learned, yes, there's unconditional love. Like I unconditionally love my mother and my daughter. I don't romantically love my mother or my daughter. And so as my husband, what sets this love apart is actually the opposite. There's unconditional love, but then there's also conditional love. Romantic love, which is very conditional actually. That's why people, when certain conditions get met, magically they fall in love. There's not really a choice over it. But the more we've nerded out on it, we're like, oh, actually, like, we're two very different creatures. For many years, I was loving him and how I want to be loved. And it just didn't go in. So it was a waste of energy. And I was like, wow, I feel like I'm doing everything for you. And you're still like not feeling tended to in the deepest way. And so when I actually started to listen to him and we like decided to get a PhD in how can we love each other as best as we can, because we discovered like love is the most powerful force.
Yeah, our relationship is built on the premise of conditional love more than unconditional. The difference is that if you think of it as an energetic dynamic, it's like profit in a business is a certain type of energy, and a lot of profit is like the sign of a healthy business. In our ecosystem together, the presence of romantic love is the sign of a healthy relationship. Like people can they can unconditionally love each other and the relationship can end. You see it all the time of like, oh, we love each other really very much. We're just not in love anymore. And so it's not the hallmark of a quality relationship.
Yeah, we've met a lot of married couples that have been together so long, but the relationship doesn't feel alive. Yeah. And that wasn't appealing to us. Like we wanted to have it feel alive. Like if we're going to dance this dance, like fucking let's dance. Like, and I just was continuously mind blown of like, wow, when I communicate in this way that resonates for him, but to me, it doesn't feel any different, but it actually works. Like something different's happening in his response. Then I'm like, oh, note it. And then when I love him in the ways that he really wants to be loved, like, and it makes a massive difference compared to what I was doing before in the ways I want to be loved. It was just the results were so obvious and in my face that we were upward spiraling versus draining energy and just missing each other. And so it's an infinite game. It's an infinite game, and it's the road of where our sex and our romance and our connection just keeps getting better and keeps getting deeper. Like I said at the beginning, I'm like, if you would have told me back then we'd be where we are now, I wouldn't have believed you. And this is the beautiful thing that I've learned in like longer term relationship is like all of the things I had questions for. Oh, you're too extroverted for me. Now he's more introverted than me. So it's like eventually part of the like sacred geometry of love and devotion is that you can go anywhere together, and you will. At some point you'll be the sick one and they'll be the healthy one, and at some point that's going to flip. Same in career, same in like everything. And so that we definitely, I think in the transition from stage 2 to stage 3, there was like a dogma kind of rigidity of like, okay, you're leader and I'm follower. And like, I just had to like get my head around, but that's what actually allowed me to go fully into the initiation into stage 3. And then actually that kind of dissolves a little. And we're so attuned to ourselves and each other that harmony becomes a natural baseline, not something we're constantly trying to create by negotiating it.
Yeah, going back to the purpose of relationship, I think one of the core purposes in the devotional path in this kind of dynamic is relationship is the path to waking up. And relationship teaches you how to strip away all of the false constructs around society and belief structures and parental dynamics that we were raised with. And the cycles of death that you go through teach you how to shed all of those things to come into a place of co-creative harmony between masculine and feminine energy. And then in that place, like life is able to move through in a way that we did not have before.
I fucking love you guys. I'm like,
It's mutual.
I'm gonna get a little teary-eyed actually, just thinking about like just witnessing you two and feeling you two individually and then together is stunning. And I'm so fucking grateful that I have a model like both of you. And Andy, you've changed my life in so many ways, brother. And I love you so much. And I'm so grateful for all of just the big brother you've been for me over the years. And it's so, like, to know that this is the blueprint, like this is a blueprint that exists, is going to impact so many people. And I'm so grateful that both of you are living it and that you guys are embodying it and so openly sharing, so vulnerably too. Like both of you, like I just feel like I learned so much through your own examples and feeling how these frameworks and these maps have been tested and battle tested. And so just want to thank you both for being so authentically you, and for choosing love, and for showing up in devotion, and for inspiring me. And I know many others who are seeking this and calling this in. Mm-hmm. So, if anyone wanted to learn more about your work, or get involved with anything you guys have coming up, I know there's workshops, there's things that are kind of in the world. How would they go about doing that?
It's a great question. One of the things that we consciously did for the first many years, because people that knew us knew some level of like, wow, they're like, going about this very differently. And we, would help. It started with just friends, right? And then it kind of organically expanded. But we also intentionally, we are ready. Like we prioritized our relationship. So anytime we would teach or whatever and it would blow us out, we're like, we're not ready yet. We're not ready. Like
we intentionally did not teach for a long time.
We really value like the mastery path and like really being able to teach and embody, and we're ready. And it feels like part of our dharma and part of the gift we want to give the world. And also it's not what pays the bills for us. And so I think that allows us to be more in our artists and more in our muse and healer. And
yeah, we were gifted so much from our mentors, and it was an exquisite gift to receive from all three of them. And so we just want to pass this forward as much as possible. And so best ways to check it out, I would say go to theartoflove.com. There's stuff there. You can get a relationship health score, which will analyze your relationship on a bunch of different points. If you opt in there, we may teach a workshop or something this year and go into some of these concepts in a really deep, intimate container, which is way more interesting because we can tell other stories and other experiences that.
We love being. We just want to teach, and so it's our favorite thing as of now is just being invited into other people's podcasts and other people's communities, and we get to just share and be in our favorite part of it. And we'll have a weekend workshop for couples in Boulder, I think the second or third weekend of September. And we are also really, because ChatGPT is becoming a really good relationship coach, but what we love doing is also going into deep dive spaces with couples and doing actual like hands-on work and transmissions in that way, because sometimes what we've found is that people are almost there and they just need this slight relationship chiropractic adjustment, and that we like really like doing those right now.
Best doing that in an extended container, not in like a call. It's like in person doing stuff. It's the transmission's so much more effective. And
I've been writing more, which has felt really, really fun. And we're open. So I invite people's desires and questions and what they're hungry for, but we're ready. And this feels like such an honor and so sacred to us. And not yet something where we're like, this is exactly, we have a workshop every single weekend. We're doing, not that level of.
Yeah. That's not what we're doing. right now.
Well, it's your art.
It's our art right now.
It's your art, and it
Right.
feels, that's what actually feels so sacred.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel so unbelievably grateful for this little piece of art we got to create today. And I have a final question for both of you.
Yeah.
In the midst of everything you have experienced together, what is a ritual that helps you both stay grounded?
It's
Okay.
the ritual.
That's
The ritual.
so.
There's only one.
If there were a religion that we both subscribe to, it's the religion of love. And we actually call it ritual, where, date nights kind of start as like, oh, we're going out for a date night. And then now we still like going out once in a while for a date night, but ritual has actually become where we go to church for our chosen religion. And in the beginning, we had to force ourselves to do it. Oh, I'm so tired. I'm so this. So it's like, come as you are.
So what ritual ritual is just like if you go to church, it's like your devotion to God, like whatever that expression is. Ritual is our devotion to sex and emotional connection and to our relationship. So every week, we generally book off 3 hours, right?
more
Or
now.
more. Right now it's on Wednesday afternoons. And it is a space where the primary focus is on sex and connection and emotional connection. And it is from this place where we make the best decision, the biggest decisions in our life, like the businesses we want to do, the places we want to move, all of it happens in ritual space. And I think the number one most effective thing you can do if you want more harmony and more polarity and sexual charge in your relationship is to book off 3 hours a week and make it a non-negotiable. And it will change so much. And there's a bunch of other mechanics of getting into how we set the space and do all of the things, but that devotion to that as like a baseline, what it will do in your relationship is it will establish a rhythm of connection that will carry on through the rest of your week. And so it takes a little bit to get the habit going, but then once that thing is going, it will become the wellspring that fuels the rest of your creative
Even more
life.
than that, I feel like I've had my deepest trauma releases in ritual space. I've had, my channel has developed in ritual space. Like being in the most intimate private container, like literally naked often with the person you're deciding like we're going to love each other as best as we possibly can. And what does that look like? What does it mean? We're constantly living that question. It's the laboratory of love. It's like we really subscribe to, I think some people go to the doctor for their relationship, and we really like going to the gym. Like, how can we be so healthy and overflowing that we're our own healers, we're our own guides, like we're each other's spiritual teachers. And then it's part of the tantric marriage path, waking down into your bodies, and the body is very important.
Thank you both.
Thank you,
Thank you for having
Raj.
us.
Thank you for having us.
Oh my
Such a
gosh.
treat.
It's such a privilege and a joy to just have you guys in my life. So thank you for being and for sharing yourself so authentically. And everyone, that's a wrap for this week's episode of Stay Grounded. I'm your host, Raj. This is your new friends, Andy and Libby. And from us, stay grounded. We'll chat soon.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Stay Grounded. No matter where you're from or what you're going through, I hope it helps you remember just how incredible you are and have always been. If you're on a path of emotional healing or self-discovery and would like to learn how Liberate can support your journey, head to www.rajana.com/liberate. That is LIBER8 to learn more about our current group programs and one-on-one offerings. I love you guys, and I'll see you next week.